All right, welcome into Philadelphia Eagles now. It is a very difficult and emotional Monday after the Birds suffered a gut-wrenching defeat in Super Bowl 57 to the Kansas City Chiefs. And you think about some of the historic Philadelphia losses that are just brutal defeats. This is certainly up there and one of the hardest defeats to take as a Philadelphia Eagles fan. I personally feel as though I was punched in the stomach and kicked in the balls. And when I woke up on Monday, I couldn't believe that this was the reality. I was hoping that once my alarm sounded as I had to get to work to record today's show, that I was in some type of nightmare. But unfortunately, this is true, this is real, and we have to talk about it together because this is our therapy session. So coming your way on today's show, latest Philadelphia Eagles news and rumors with the offseason officially underway after a heartbreaking loss in Super Bowl 57. We have some news to start off with Lane Johnson, and we knew at some point he was going to undergo surgery. That is now official now that the season is officially over. Adam Schefter with this just moments ago that Eagles right tackle Lane Johnson, who played through a torn adductor in his core area this postseason, will undergo surgery on it later this week. Johnson delayed the surgery so that he could play in the NFL playoffs, and now he will have the time he needs to have it repaired and for him to recover. And in speaking with Lane Johnson throughout this past week from Super Bowl 57 in Phoenix, Arizona, appreciate everybody who tuned into our coverage. He had said, look, I've been playing through this pain, but after the year is when I'll get that surgery. An absolute warrior for the best right tackle in football. And going back to this defeat to the Kansas City Chiefs, this is why this loss stings, because we should be celebrating a Super Bowl championship. I should be getting ready to hop on a flight to go back to Philadelphia for a parade down Broad Street, which ends at the Art Museum steps on Thursday. Instead, we're scratching our heads and we're replaying all of the different sequences and all the different plays that the Eagles missed out on that kept them from winning their second Lombardi trophy. And why the loss hurts? The Eagles outplayed Kansas City, and they go into the offseason knowing perhaps they're the better team than the Kansas City Chiefs. They had more first downs. They had more third down conversions, as Jalen Hurts was just great on the money downs. They had more passing yards. They had more plays, total yards, and they dominated time of possession, keeping Patrick Mahomes on that sideline. But when he was on the field, Jonathan Gannon's defense, which we'll talk about, especially Jonathan Gannon, had no answers to the creativity, the pre-snap motion, the pre-snap movement from head coach Andy Reid. And I took to Twitter to say this on my walk into work this morning as I was just moving a little bit slow like all Eagles fans out there. And this is why this loss also just is a uppercut right to the chin. Of the 57 Super Bowl losers now, only 8 teams have made it back the following year. So the Eagles, in losing to Kansas City, really did squander an incredible opportunity last night, and it's going to be hard to have a team that's as deep and as talented as this one when Jalen Hurts gets that contract extension and he's making $40 to $50 million per year, which, by the way, he has earned. And critical moments to remember in this game. The Isaac Seumalo false start, which then backed the Eagles up. That led to Jalen Hurts fumbling the football, and then it's return for the scoop and score. And when you hand a team like Kansas City free points, that's how you go down in a game like this of this magnitude when two elite teams are playing against one another. The Quez Watkins drop, also a critical moment in this game where Hurts stood in the pocket, he got popped, and Quez Watkins has to come down with that football. The Kadarius Toney punt return, the longest punt return in the history of the Super Bowl, was another gift to Kansas City, knocking on the doorstep at the 5-yard line, which allowed them to score another touchdown. Of course, the James Bradberry penalty, which I went off on last night. Go and watch last night's post-game show because I was emotional and despondent after that. And the Philadelphia Eagles, no sacks on Patrick Mahomes after all throughout this year. They had a dominant pass rush. It did not show up on Sunday in Super Bowl 57, partially because of that garbage turf. And speaking of those no sacks, this is coming from Zach Berman. Does a great job with The Athletic. Now, going into the season, the Eagles' defensive objectives were to affect the quarterback more and take the ball away more. Super Bowl was the first game this season without a sack and a takeaway for this Eagles defense. They had one other game without a sack, 2 other games without takeaways, but never at the same time. So for them to arguably play their worst game of the season, it came at the most inopportune of times. Now, I do want you to be honest here with our poll question for today's show. Eagles didn't win the Super Bowl, so to some it might be a failure, but this is arguably the most successful season outside of winning a Super Bowl in franchise history. So grade the Eagles' 2022 season A, B, C, D, or F. Make sure you sound off, give it a grade, and if you get hit with that YouTube ad break, use it to your advantage to get into the comment section right now. Now let's go to Adam Schefter here about some of the latest Eagles coaching news, and a lot of people probably excited about this. That Eagles defensive coordinator Jonathan Gannon expected to interview today on Monday for the Arizona Cardinals head coaching job. And I'll say this, if he goes out to the NFC West, a coach like Kyle Shanahan is going to run laps around his defense because of the lack of adjustments that we saw from Gannon in that football game. More from Schefter, Eagles defensive coordinator Jonathan Gannon interviewing with the Cardinals, while Eagles offensive coordinator Shane Steichen going to Indianapolis to finalize his head coaching deal with the Colts. So the Eagles definitely losing one coordinator, might be losing both coordinators. And any offseason in which you have a lot of turnover on that coaching staff, it's difficult to rebound from that because of the lack of continuity moving forward. I have trust in Nick Sirianni to continue to build that offensive staff. Look for Brian Johnson, the quarterback's coach, has a great relationship with Jalen Hurts, played under Hurts' father, to step in there as the OC and the play caller. And going back to Gannon here, the Eagles' defense is the culprit from this loss in Super Bowl 57. And heading into this game, my big concern was the fact that Jonathan Gannon, his defense had put up really good numbers throughout the regular season. But in 2 years as the Eagles' defensive coordinator, he has consistently struggled against great play callers, great offenses, and elite quarterbacks. And I thought that Jonathan Gannon coached scared against the Kansas City Chiefs, and the lack of adjustments burnt the birds, and that's why the Chiefs were able to outscore the Eagles like they did in the second half by a margin of 24-11 after the Eagles went into halftime with that 10-point lead, and they now join the Atlanta Falcons in 2016 as the only two teams in Super Bowl history to lose a game in the Super Bowl in which they had a double-digit lead at halftime. Not quite 28-3, but a 10-point advantage squandered by Philadelphia. And the Chiefs, this is what I don't understand about Jonathan Gannon. The Chiefs have not had a deep threat all year. A vertical pass game has not been a part of this offense because Tyreek Hill is with the Miami Dolphins. Yet Jonathan Gannon was sitting back in that soft zone, a lot of quarters coverage, playing scared, acting as though Patrick Mahomes is going to take the top off of this defense. And what it did, it opened up everything underneath for Juju Smith-Schuster to go off in the second half, for Travis Kelce to have a really good game. And then some of that creativity as the Chiefs approached the goal line to Sky Moore on that touchdown and Kadarius Toney, Eagles were completely lost by that pre-snap motion. Yes, the grass surface sucked. And the fact that the NFL, for a Super Bowl game, decided to experiment with a new type of grass is an absolute joke. It certainly neutralized the Eagles' pass rush. Go back and watch the game. I already did. Hassan Reddick, Josh Sweat, everybody was slipping all over the place. Yes, both teams had to deal with that playing surface, but it's easier for an offensive line in the Chiefs to go up and get in that pass set as compared to the Eagles defensive linemen when they're trying to cut to get around those offensive linemen, and the Eagles pass rush was neutralized, which was the biggest key for an Eagles victory in this game and partially why they went down with that loss. And the Eagles also could not stop the run. That too, on Jonathan Gannon. This is an Eagles defense that has struggled against the ground game this year. And after the additions of Ndamukong Suh and Linval Joseph, and with Jordan Davis coming back, they were certainly better, but they weren't good in the Super Bowl. 26 carries for the Chiefs, 158 yards, more than 100 of those coming after halftime. As for the Eagles' blitz rate, when you watch the game, it looked as though, yeah, they sat back in that zone a lot, which they did. When they did blitz, which was 33% of Patrick Mahomes' drops, which was the Eagles' number 2 highest blitz rate of the season, they had 0 sacks, and Patrick Mahomes was able to carve up that Eagles defense. So it's the lack of adjustments. It's blitzing at inopportune times, knowing that Patrick Mahomes can burn you, but also Jonathan Gannon just having no answers after halftime for this Chiefs offense. And you might say, oh, Jonathan Gannon's defense, they played well in that first half. It's because the Chiefs offense basically did not have the football. So do you want Jonathan Gannon to leave, no longer being the defensive coordinator for Philadelphia, and go to the Arizona Cardinals? I'm kind of done with them. I think a veteran DC going to be better for Philadelphia, and maybe it's a veteran DC who might not leave in a couple of years or after a year to get another head coaching job like the upstart Jonathan Gannon. Give me a Y for yes and for no. And as you venture down there, please make sure you subscribe. Now that the offseason is here, I guarantee you we're going to be bringing you the best coverage that any Eagles YouTube channel has to offer here. So subscribe, lock us in. Thanks to about the 700 new people who subscribed during our watch party last night, as we got more than 90,000 views and picked up a lot of new people here on the channel. We will not disappoint with our coverage. And some key offseason dates to keep an eye on here. The offseason is basically underway very, very quickly, and the NFL has mastered the year-round calendar. NFL Combine, February 28th. That's in 2 weeks. NFL free agency kicks off on March 15th, and the NFL draft April 27th. Eagles have the 10th overall pick in a later pick in that first round, So Eagles draft rumors and scouting profiles here on the show are going to be awesome as well. All right, let's round out with a couple more items here on this losing Monday, as we were so used to a victory Monday here on the show all throughout the year. 16-3 record heading into the Super Bowl. Could a Jalen Hurts extension be coming soon? A lot of NFL insiders out there believe that Hurts is going to receive a large contract extension, and that's the word from ESPN's Dan Graziano. It's also the word I got in speaking with Jay Glazer from Super Bowl Radio Row last week when he said, yeah, they're going to get him done. The players rallied around him. They absolutely love him. And Jeffrey Lurie even said to Sal Palantonio, Hurts doesn't have to prove anything. And after that Super Bowl performance, yeah, he's going to get the bag. Here's what Graziano had to say. I expect the Eagles to work to sign quarterback Jalen Hurts to an extension early in the offseason. They know the price tag has likely gone to $50 million a year or more. And with Cincinnati's Joe Burrow, Chargers Justin Herbert, also extension eligible this summer, and a Lamar Jackson mega deal still possible, the prices at the top of the quarterback market could ratchet up quickly. That's why the timing here is important, folks. Remember, since Hurts was a second-round pick, the Eagles do not hold a fifth-year option on him for 2024, as the Bengals do with Burrow and the Chargers with Herbert. So there's a little more urgency, to get that Hurts deal done. And Hurts' price tag has only gone up after what he did in the Super Bowl. He went stride for stride, step for step, throw for throw with Patrick Mahomes. And the Eagles should be very confident in him after what he did in the Super Bowl. And I think it's important to get this deal done early, because maybe you save some money by getting it done early, and then you let some of the other quarterbacks, like a Justin Herbert, like a Lamar Jackson, or Joe Burrow, reset the market to a certain degree, because they are better passers of the football than Jalen Hurts. But can Hurts continue to make strides as a passer? He's done it from year 1 to year 2, year 3. Can he do it from year 3 to year 4? If the Super Bowl is an indication, then the answer to that is yes. 27-38, 304 passing yards, 15 carries for 70 yards. That's the most rushing yards for a quarterback in Super Bowl history, and he accounted for 4 total touchdowns. Now, he did give away a touchdown to Nick Bolton of the Chiefs, who had a fantastic game for Kansas City, and it did hurt the Eagles. I mean, if you go up a couple of scores there, maybe we're talking about the Super Bowl champion, Philadelphia Eagles. Instead, we're talking about a kick-in-the-balls defeat for Philadelphia. And this is pretty crazy, right, with how well Hurts played, especially on those third downs, in which he was absolutely awesome. Hurts had 374 of the Eagles' 417 yards, and you can also make the argument he should have been named Super Bowl MVP last night despite going down, because he shouldered the load for this entire Eagles team. Money on third downs, made some big-time throws, the throw downfield to A.J. Brown, another one to Devontae Smith, some of the third down throws as well. The one to Dallas Goedert was great, and then the overturn throw to Devontae Smith, which should not have been overturned in my opinion because of the lack of evidence. But anyway, here's why Hurts should get the bag. He's steadily improved each year, and that's what you want to see from a quarterback, continuing to get better and not being just content with being good. He has franchise-face qualities, leadership, intangibles, hard work. How he conducted himself after the Super Bowl loss was great. You compare that with Cam Newton, different levels of leadership qualities. You know that your money is safe in your investment because you know he's going to be in the lab working and not playing video games like Kyler Murray. And he's coming off an MVP type of campaign and a Super Bowl appearance in which he played great. One of the best quarterback performances we've ever seen in the history of this franchise. If I'm going to put my money on one guy and put my money invested into a certain player, it's Jalen Hurts because of what he brings to the table. Do you want the Eagles to give Hurts the bag? That's our next question for the homies. P for pay, E for too expensive. I'm interested to see where the fan base is at here. Lastly, let's round out with C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Is he going to get re-signed? If you caught our interview with him last week, from the Eagles team hotel, he had said, I'd love to come back to Philadelphia. Who wouldn't? I love it here. That's great because according to reports, Howie Roseman expected to prioritize re-signing him. Mike Garafolo, NFL Network, with this prior to that Super Bowl kickoff taking place. The one guy I do expect Roseman to make a big push for is Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. When he plays on defense, that defense has swag, and they talked about long-term goals when they acquired him, and Howie Roseman, a highway robbery to acquire him. And his versatility, I think, is really important, especially in today's NFL. He has some Malcolm Jenkins qualities to him. He has some Honey Badger qualities to him where he can play on the back end, but he can also play along the line of scrimmage in that slot corner. I thought that the versatility in which the Eagles used him with in that Super Bowl was pretty appealing and pretty impressive, and he was flying around the field. That one run that Isaiah Pacheco had, if you go back and watch the bird's eye view of that play, Pacheco turns that left corner. C.J. Gardner-Johnson's the only defender back there. He comes streaking across halfway the field, and he's able to lay that hit on Pacheco to keep that from being a long touchdown. Made a couple of other big hits, another one on Isaiah Pacheco at some point. Brian Dawkins was on Chris Long's podcast, and he said, my favorite Eagle, if I were to get a jersey, it's that number 23. It is C.J. Gardner-Johnson. He has that positional versatility. That's why I'd like to see him return. Tied for the NFL lead in interceptions this year. He has that dog in him, and if you give him that investment and you make that investment in him, he's only 25 years old. I still think he has some really good football ahead of him. So if you trust that Howie Roseman can get the Birds back to this point where they can appear once again in the Super Bowl, even though that statistic that we talked about earlier doesn't trend in the right direction for Philadelphia, I want you to hit that thumbs up icon and like the video. I appreciate everybody who tuned in all throughout this year. Humbling to see the channel do as well as it did, considering that I grew up in the Philadelphia area rooting on this football team, but we're not stopping here. Our offseason coverage going to be fantastic, so you don't want to miss out.